Hello, puppies and kittens. As you may well know, Trump recently said that federal employees can discuss religion in the workplace, even, and he specified this, even that employees can proselytize to other employees to try to convince them of the truth of their religion. Now, of course, he did this thinking only that there would be Christian dominant workplace and that everybody needs to proselytize to everybody else so that they're all Christian. And what happens if you're not? What happens if you're Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or Sikh, as happens sometimes? Of course, he's not considering that, is he? And federal employees, well, it was a few years ago here in Texas. There was somebody wanted to promote the Merry Christmas bill, which was to encourage people at the holidays, whatever holiday you celebrate, to tell your classroom. The teachers are all supposed to tell their classroom what they celebrate, which holiday, which religion they are, because the whole thing is that they want to out you. So that's a little disturbing. And now we have people in the private sector. You could always have religious conversations, but the employers reserve the right to deem when that is appropriate or inappropriate or prohibited. So we're talking today with Paul. My wife, Lalandra, is joining us because this is a subject that matters a whole lot to both of us. Paul, you there?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Now, you contacted me recently to say that that you felt pressured at work to have religious discussion. You want to tell me about that, please?
Yes. I was talking with someone about religion, and my supervisor, who is Christian, did not agree with my views on the Bible and religion. And she said that no one wants to hear me saying stuff like that. But then she turns around and talks about religion.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? That's hypocritical because, oh, well, suppose I don't agree with her interpretation of the Bible or something. So I could say the same thing back to her. I've had a lot of bad experiences at work. I don't know if I can name one right now. There was a Cinco de Mayo luncheon at one office I worked at, and someone said, "Hey, let's pray." And then someone said, "Well, let him grab a plate, while we're praying." But no, I had to wait until they were done praying. It wouldn't have been as bad if they just let me get started. So I
Mhm.
told the district manager about it, and she basically told me where to get off. She said, "What's wrong with it?" I said, "It's coercive." And she said, "No, coercive would be if people were walking up the hallway saying, 'Hey, we're going to go pray now.'" But what happened to me was coercive enough. And then one of the people that was praying um, said to me, "Oh, she got up on her high horse. She wouldn't let me talk." And I tried to tell her that the Bible says, "Do not pray in public." And she
Yep.
said, "Oh, that doesn't mean, oh, that just means you can pray in public. Just don't do it hypocritically. That's not what it says. It
No.
repeatedly says, do not pray in public."
Where
So,
yeah, where like do not be like the hypocrites. Do not pray in public where you can be seen. Pray in the privacy of your own room behind a closed door.
right, exactly. So pray in secret, get rewarded in secret. Well, actually, don't get, there's no God to reward you. But anyway, that's another topic. So anyway, and then at district meeting that we had, district wide meeting, I brought it up, I think, and then she was saying, she basically cut me off. And then she said, "Everyone just be secure in your beliefs." In other words, she just didn't want to get involved. I asked the Freedom from Religion Foundation to write her a letter. She probably just looked at it, laughed, and threw it in the garbage. But anyway, um,
Um,
so she just didn't want to get involved.
I need some context here. Do you work in a private business or for the federal government?
I work for the state of Michigan. I don't want to say where, but
Okay.
So it
now,
is a government position.
yes, yes. Now this was a potluck dinner. It was a potluck dinner in a conference room. It was not paid for by state taxes, so that's how they can get around the state church issue. But it's still inappropriate.
It's funny how they always need to find a way to get around the law to keep doing this shit anyway.
Yes.
So the issue that I have with all of this is, okay, when you're praying, you're talking to yourself. So you get a whole bunch of people who share the same magic imaginary friend, or mostly the same, different
Right.
interpretations thereof, and then they're all going to pretend this thing. And when they tell you whatever that is about their beliefs, it's never just I believe X. And if it was, then I wouldn't care, because well, the only reason that I want to know what is the reason you believe X. I don't give a fuck what it
Right.
is.
Right.
Tell me
That
the
reminds
reason.
me of another story.
Well, hold on. I got to get to the rest of this.
I'm sorry.
But what they don't tell you just that I believe. They tell you as fact, right? All this shit as if it really happened, as if it was verifiable. Look it up and see. But it's not. None of it. No religion. Every religion claims that. No religion can show it, which is what I find so irritating. Is when people. It's exactly like when people make up statistics on the spot, and tell you that 67.3% of whatever. If you just made up that number, that's a lie. You're expressing that. I saw a philosophy professor did a speaking tour on the concept that faith is pretending to know what you don't know. And I agree with him on that. It's basically just lying. And so it's irritating to listen to people who want to lie to you this way and proselytize to you, and they don't have ground one for any of it, regardless of the federal government or the Constitution. They still don't have. Even if we were on a deserted island somewhere, they still don't have a philosophical grounding to say the things that they do. And my rant is over. I'll let you continue.
Okay, sorry about cutting you off. Okay, so I had a supervisor who said to me, "Do you know that every prophecy in the Bible has been fulfilled except for one?" She never said what it was, but I assume it's the book of Revelation. So I said, "You can believe whatever you want, but if you're going to say you actually know something, then you have to prove it." And she said, "Duly noted." So I got through to one theist, at least a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I wish I could have. I answered that question slightly differently. I start listing prophecies that failed.
Yeah. I think I did mention that briefly. I didn't go into detail. I worked with a Jehovah's Witness, and another woman said to her, she was talking about religious beliefs. The other woman said, "That's not what that's what you believe. That's not what you know. That's what you believe." The Jehovah's Witness was shocked. And when she was able to talk again, she said, "Wow, I never looked at it that way before. Oh, well, I know I'm still right." Now, the woman that said that to her ran into her several years later, and she was then wearing a cross. So, so unfortunately, I guess she believes that stuff herself. But she was right that one time, though.
Okay, so it's not a federal job, but it is a government job, and so
Correct.
we're still under what should be the same restrictions. Of why we shouldn't be outing people's religious beliefs. I mean, when they do that to Trump, notice he has an excuse. Well, I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. That's why he can't name anything out of the Bible that he cites, not one thing, because he's
You
never read the
can't.
fucking thing, not a bit of it, and he's just lying to cover up the fact that he's never cracked one open. But he has an out. He can just say, "No, I just because that's very personal." Well, why can't it be for the rest of us?
Exactly.
Leave it the fuck alone. I'm trying to do a job here. Stop telling me about your magic imaginary friend.
Right. I had, oh gosh, now I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. I
Oh
hope I
God.
didn't do
Oh,
that
no,
to
no, no. It wasn't your fault.
you.
Okay. Well, let me pivot to something else. Oh gosh, no, I'm drawing a blank. So anyway, and then someone left a Bible verse on my desk, which it said something about I passed from death to life or something. I don't remember the exact verse. And I don't like that. If they want to talk religion with me, I got no trouble with that. But say it to my face. Don't be leaving notes on my desk. And and I remember a really good example. The director over the whole State Department came into our office, and she led us in the oath. She wanted us to retake our oath, renew our oath to the state. So Michigan. So she led us in the oath, and she said, "I swear," and then the oath, and then she said, "So help me God." I complained to the Freedom from Religion Foundation. They wrote her a letter, and she promised not to do that again. Instead of saying, "I swear," we would be given the choice of saying, "I affirm" or "swear." And also the religious language, "So help me God," that's not even in the oath for the state of Michigan. And she said that would be optional. That shouldn't even be in there at all. As far as those people at the Cinco de Mayo luncheon, I'm sure they wouldn't want to sit through something that they didn't believe. So everyone else is praying. I'm standing off in the corner looking like an idiot. And, I guess as you would say, outed. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was this at the private Cinco de Mayo dinner, or was this what you're
This
talking about? Where
this
they
was
prayed?
at work.
And was it during business hours, or
Yes, it was. It was on lunch hour. It was in the conference room on lunch hour in a government office. Um, but it was a potluck dinner. It wasn't paid for by state tax dollars. So, I guess that's how they got around that. It's
the
still
building
inappropriate.
the
I'm sorry?
building the building is paid for by state tax dollars, though?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. When I went, worked in a corporate office for a long time, for like 14 years. And the HR department was pretty on top of things as far as diversity and all that. So, I mean, when they were wanting to do holiday decorations, they asked if it would be offensive to me, knowing that I was atheist, if they put decorations up in the office. I'm sure do your thing. That's fine. But and my boss, I knew that he was a creationist. My boss's boss, actually. I knew that he was a creationist, but at some point, we'd managed to avoid that topic for a long time until he called me into his office and we had it out. And it didn't. He didn't do well in that argument. And I got a formal apology, which I appreciated, in writing, nonetheless. And shortly thereafter, I realized I was being groomed to be eliminated from that job. So they just set things up in such a way that you now have a metric that I have to meet that didn't exist before, and I can't meet it because they now got me in training for a department I don't want to belong to. I don't want to have anything to do with. So yeah, I realized I had about 30 days to get out of there, and that's how I got out and started doing this full time.
Wow. Maybe a
Yeah.
blessing in disguise, if you'll pardon the expression.
Yeah. I would have rather not had that conversation at all. And there's a number of people that tried to bring up religion every now and again, and I would warn them, you're not prepared for this. And one guy who's a really nice guy foolishly asked me why it is that I could believe in evolution when the Bible has been proven true and there's no evidence of evolution. Why would I believe that? And I said, let me write out an answer for you. So I responded, and I showed him evidence of evolution and the indications from scholars and everything that the Bible is mostly wrong, at least, if not entirely. And then he promised he would never bring up religion to me again. Fine, respectfully, both of us, but this is not you're not prepared for this conversation. And he never touched it again. That's the way it should be.
Right.
It isn't the way it should be, because they don't tell you that whenever you talk about your non-religious beliefs, that they're going to start trying to be harder on you because you had that disagreement, like you're saying it happened at your workplace. So the people.
The other guy I'm talking about now was not an employer. He's a coworker. My job is not being threatened at all.
You said that they started applying new metrics to you after this.
Oh no, yeah, that was the other thing. Yeah, with the boss's boss. Yeah, so I was talking about two different instances here, and in the second instance, the guy acknowledged that we won't talk about religion again. We'll just be professional and leave that out. That's what it should be.
Yeah, but I think that people shouldn't discuss their religious beliefs at work at all, and particularly not your boss.
Yep.
Shouldn't be discussing it with you. I mean,
Yep.
I've worked as a teacher, and coworkers would often ask me to if I wanted to pray before school started, and I would just decline, and I wouldn't talk about it with them at all. And really, it has nothing to do with my job. So why do I have to be involved in it? But then I'm kind of missing out on socializing with my coworkers that they're doing. But I also had a boss that was always telling me praise God all the time and waiting for me to praise God back, because being a teacher in Texas, everybody wants to know where you go to church, all that kind of stuff. And I once during a performance evaluation, which everybody gets, she was all talking about Christianity, and I just finally told her I don't discuss religion at work. And she was just always after that hassling me. And so, like, I wanted to talk about, like, how under the Trump administration, that would be, I was a state employee like Paul, but there's a federal agency called the Office of Personnel Management. And even before the Trump administration issued this directive to federal employees in July, technically, because the people say freedom of religion in the Constitution, people can discuss religion at work as long as it's not disruptive, as long as nobody's harassing anybody, and stuff like that. But what this doesn't get into, though, is just like the high school students who don't want to do a prayer before a football game. It interrupts with team morale, and it makes you an outsider, and it outs you, and really it has nothing to do with how well you play football. And people do get bullied because they don't participate in these mostly Christian religious activities. And I feel like Christians would totally understand if the Muslims on the ball team wanted everybody to huddle and have a Muslim prayer, and they didn't want to participate. And your coach is a Muslim, and most everybody else is a Muslim. Why this excludes people, whether that's your intent or not. But for some people, it is intentional to exclude other people and kind of mark their territory. This is Christian workplace. This is a Christian football team, whatever. And it's not fair to people who aren't, whether they're Muslim, Hindu, or atheist. And so recently in July, because the Trump administration is run by evangelicals, Project 2025, of course, and they the Office of Personnel Management issued a directive to their federal employees that even your supervisor can discuss religion with you. So, like, this is just a ripe situation for bullying and abuse and harassment.
And also forced conformity, because they're going to out the teachers who aren't part of the majority faith.
Or students, but in federal workplace, there's a ton of federal workers. You should be able to go to work at even the Office of Personnel Management. Offhand, there are a lot of federal jobs like the Federal Trade Commission, even air traffic controllers and such, where that shouldn't be part of your job description, discussing religion with your supervisor. And I have the quote from that memo that says that your supervisor can talk to you about it. And they go, there's an exception for your if somebody says they don't want to discuss it with you, that you should drop it. But anybody who has grown up around Christians, some Christians are very polite about their beliefs, but others are very like, they feel like it's their calling to proselytize all the time. I mean, like I've been in a teacher professional development with teachers all around the district, and this guy, the guy's name was Darwin, which is a weird coincidence, but he started talking about how he wasn't going to be popular. He had the mic, so, and we're hundreds of teachers sitting here talking about test scores, and he's like, I'm not going to be popular to say this, but then he started talking about Jesus, you know, and frankly, maybe they believe that praying to Jesus is going to raise the test scores, but for me, what raises test scores is teaching, not talking to yourself. And well, they think they're talking to somebody else, but you know. Here we go. Conversations between federal employees. Employees may engage in conversations regarding these religious topics with fellow employees, including attempting to persuade others of the correctness of their own religious beliefs. So not just saying praise God or God bless you.
Literally
Right?
saying that you can argue.
Yes, that you can persuade your fellow employees, like Paul, he's not a federal employee, he's a state employee, that you're correct, your religious beliefs are correct. And watch if you try to apply that in the opposite direction, where an atheist like Paul tries to convince people that his views on religion are correct. Watch and see if you get protected over that. And it says that regarding religious topics with fellow employees, including attempt to persuade others of the correctness of their own religious views, provided that such efforts are not harassing in nature. And harassing is in nature, people will weasel about who's harassing who. You know, no, she's just like Paul was talking about. No, I just won't do it in the future. I just won't leave this Bible verse on your desk in the future. I mean, I've had those too. I've had people email me whenever I did this display with the students of the sun, how large it is in comparison to the earth. And somebody emailed me, of course. He's like, this is a good opportunity to talk about God with them and how great God is. And I was like, what am I supposed to answer to this? 16, okay, here, sorry about that. Employees may also encourage their coworkers to participate in religious expressions of faith, such as prayer, to the same extent that they would be permitted to encourage coworkers to participate in other personal activities. The constitutional rights of supervisors to engage in such conversations should not be distinguished from non-supervisory employees by the nature of their supervisory roles. However, unwillingness to engage in such conversations may not be the basis of workplace discipline. But they're not going to tell you that it's because you don't want to like pray with them or you don't want to talk about them. Talk about religion at work. Because I don't know how to explain this to people who don't work with like the culture warrior type Christian. It's so unusual to them that you don't believe in any God at all. It's like you grew another head. You're like an alien to them. You know?
We got a comment from Thurston Howell III. 999 says, I have declining hope in the future of this country. Aaron Ra and Lalandra are an exception. Thank you sincerely for that.
I think that at the Cinco de Mayo luncheon, it should have been just like in the lunchroom every day. Everyone sits down and eats, and those that want to pray quietly to themselves can. Those that don't can just go ahead and start eating. They don't have to wait for the people that are praying. I worked at one office where I was telling someone that this is a private conversation. I wasn't walking up and down the aisles with a bullhorn saying, don't believe in the God or whatever. But anyway, someone overheard the conversation where I was telling someone that a lot of stories in the Bible are copied from other stories. I got called into the supervisor's office, and she said I shouldn't be talking about religion anymore. Of course, it would have been okay, I suppose, if I had agreed with the Bible and said that all the stories in the Bible are true and original. So it's selective. I think Now, gosh, I should think of some more stories. I had one supervisor say, "Okay, before we eat, we had luncheon or had I don't know, someone brought in a pizza or whatever for." And she said, "Okay, we're gonna say a prayer." I said, "Hold on, I don't think we should say the prayer." And she said, "Why not?" I said, "It's because we're not all the same religion, and some of us may be no religion." And she said, "Well, why don't you?" You can excuse yourself for a minute. I should say, hey, let's say a prayer to Satan. If you don't like it, you can leave the room for a minute. And then I had another co-worker that said, oh, they should have prayer in the public schools. And then while the class is praying to Jesus, maybe a Hindu or Muslim could be thinking of their own God. And she said, well, what's wrong with that? And I should have said, suppose someone's an atheist. Who do they pray to? Charles Darwin? How about if we have a prayer to Satan? If you don't like it in your mind, while everyone else is saying Satan, you can be saying Jesus. How would you like that?
Yeah,
Do unto others.
we're not allowed to come out and say it is all just pretend for whatever reason. It's a strange cultural thing that people can just walk up and lie to children and tell them that their parents are going to be burning in everlasting hell because of some slight difference between their parents and the person talking to the child. And that's fine. That's culturally acceptable. But when I come up and say there is no hell, there is no God, we don't have souls, the Bible is mostly bullshit, don't worry about it, then somehow I'm the one who's done a bad thing.
Yes, well, you're leading them to eternal damnation. But someone, David C. Pack guy, he had an interesting interpretation of John 3:16. He said, if you believe in Jesus, you will not perish but have everlasting life. So that implies that if you don't believe in Jesus, you will not have everlasting life. So if that's the case, then how can you be tortured in hell unless you have eternal life?
The
Which
wages of sin is death. Okay.
not damnation.
Yep. Give me the bill. Check,
And
please.
when this guy handed you a pamphlet one time, and he ended up just taking it back. And he said, you have a soul. And you said, the Bible does not say you have a soul. Now, see, David C. Pack, he could have backed you up on that one if he was there, but he's into one-way communication.
Yes. All right, Paul.
People are talking about malicious compliance, like Paul was saying. Like, what if we want to lead a prayer to Satan? It's not. There's going to be uneven enforcement of directives like this. So, like, if it's a Christian who said they weren't allowed to pray with everybody at work at lunchtime, they will get their rights upheld. But if it's a Satanist, they might not come out and say that nobody likes you now at work, but it might get a little frosty after that, and people might be looking for your faults and stuff like that, and you're not going to have as harmonious a relationship with your coworkers or your boss after that, because they outnumber us.
That's true.
There are people that have been like harassed out of a job even before they've gotten so enabled by the Trump administration.
That's true. I mean, you had George W. Bush had the presidential prayer team, I think.
And he was, I know that he set up a number of faith-based initiatives, which to me is, again, another absurdity. What is faith? It's believing shit that ain't true for no good reason. That's what faith is. Pretending to know things you don't know and asserting baseless speculation as if it's a matter of fact, otherwise known as lying. That's what faith is.
Right. So now what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Christians like to say they're persecuted. One of the women at the Cinco de Mayo lunch, I keep going back to that, said, oh, everyone else can do whatever they want, but not Christians. Well, you just got away with a prayer at Cinco de Mayo luncheon, so get out of here. And then anti-Christian bias Trump is talking about. anti-Christian bias means that Christians aren't allowed to shove something down your throat. If you don't let them shove it down your throat, you're discriminating against them. And Trump says, we can now pray again. You always had that right. You just didn't have the right to shove it down someone else's throat.
Yeah,
Correct.
they see, here's the thing. What we're talking about is that workplaces should be religiously neutral to protect against harassment and discrimination against people who are not in the majority religion. But they say the memorandum says the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination in employment because of an individual's regard to religious practices, that they be treated no worse than other practices. Instead, it gives them favored treatment, obligating agencies not to discipline or discharge employees for their religious observance and practice. So this ensures religious persons have a full participation in the workplace. But they're saying it ensures you got a full participation in the workplace. But what does expressing your religious views have to do with participating in a workplace? I guess if you express your views on your favorite video game to your coworkers and stuff like that, that's what they feel like they're not able to do, is talk about their personal interests in religion. I don't know. And they're further, a co-worker's dislike of religious practice in the work and expression in the workplace is not cognizable, can't pronounce it, to factor into undue hardship inquiry. So furthermore, if you as a person don't believe in religious observances and practices and beliefs in the workplace, that's not an undue hardship to you that other religious people are doing that, and you're not religious. So it doesn't matter whether you're not able to practice your beliefs in the workplace. If your belief is religion shouldn't be discussed in the workplace, what matters is that they're able to proselytize, essentially.
Yeah, I think people have the right. I think people can talk about religion in the workplace as long as the other person doesn't mind discussing it with them. And the supervisor shouldn't be playing favorites. If she doesn't agree with your interpretation of the Bible, or your lack of belief or even disbelief in the Bible, and then people can have Bible verses in their booth. But if I put up something an atheist saying in there, I would be in trouble. So they gotta be fair. Now, someone displayed a Bible verse on the bulletin board in the hallway. So I put up my own Bible verse. That was the one in Ecclesiastes, where we are just animals and we don't have any preeminence over a beast. And a Christian woman saw that and she actually liked that verse.
Good for her. And good for her that she's not narrow-minded, but that's not always the case. And they say Title VII defines religion this way: all aspects of religious observance and practice, as well as belief, not just practices that are mandated or prohibited by the tenet of the individual's faith. However, Title VII does not cover all beliefs. For example, social, political, or economic philosophies and mere personal preferences are not religious beliefs from the meaning of the statute. So, like, your personal preference not to be proselytized in at work is not covered by Title VII, but your supervisor's ability to call everybody to prayer during lunch is covered.
Well,
It's
yet,
not fair.
Yes, and then they complain that they're being persecuted.
A lot of them lean into the persecution.
Yes.
They're looking for it.
Yeah, and then there's when you want to proselytize to someone like me, I'm down for it because I know I've got the armament. This is not going to be a conversation you're going to win.
I like discussing the Bible with Christians.
But not everybody does, because not everybody. not everybody has an interest in this. I was working in another office at another time, and I remember that there was this one girl that she was atheist, but she'd never read anything in the Bible. I said, how can you be an atheist? You don't know the Bible better than Christians. And she says, why should I? Why should I waste a minute looking at their mythology? I'm like, you're absolutely right.
Just like you don't have to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, so the point is that there are people who are just as valid in their position, but who are not versed in either the science or the philosophy or the history or the scripture or whatever. And they should just be able to be left alone at their fucking job.
Right. You don't have to be an oceanographer to reject a belief in Poseidon.
Yes, exactly.
Someone in the comments, Carl Proctor says, I teach in Dallas, and this is where I taught too. And the school principal says, prayer over the loudspeaker in the morning. The kids tune me out when we get to science because it's all fake anyways. So I've had students when I taught science, I don't talk about religion at all because it has nothing to, and they would ask me, what do I think about God or whatever? And I'm like, that's your parents' job, not mine. And one time we're talking about, well, we're going to talk about mountain building today. And isn't it cool to learn how mountains form? And someone told me, I don't need to know, a student, because God created them. The curiousness and the disruptiveness of trying to teach the state standards on science when they already know what the answer is.
I kind of like it when Jehovah's Witnesses come to my door. It gives me someone to argue with. And when I'm done with them, they're probably sorry I didn't just close the door in their face like a lot of people do.
Yeah. They don't canvass to my house anymore. I haven't had somebody come and tell me the good news of Jesus in more than 10 years.
Wow. So what was I going to say now? But a lot of people, they just close the door in their face because they don't know how to argue with them.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to. So it should always be that you have a requirement when you make an assertion that you have to be able to show the truth of it. Right. Otherwise, as Abraham Lincoln said, if you made an assertion and you don't even know if it's true or false, then it's a lie.
Right.
So I got another comment from Pragmatic Humanist for $5. Says, love what you do, big dog. Yep, love what you do, big dog. By the way, thanks for giving me a word for something I already held but couldn't quite articulate. A pistivist, much love. Thank you very much for that.
I'm not opposed. I argue with Christians too, sometimes online and sometimes at protests when I'm protesting something they're doing. But in a classroom environment, it's disruptive, and I have a 45-minute window to get this out, and having a whole discussion about how they don't need to know where mountains came from, it derails the lesson, and I'm not gonna. I feel like it's a waste of time for me to argue with that student about how do they know God did it,
Some other guy could have done it.
Well, yeah, but we can go down that rabbit hole.
Right.
Or we could talk about plate tectonics. Which one are we going to do?
No, this one's too far back, and I didn't get it because somebody tried to tag Gonna Go For It. My producer is not here on this one, so that he didn't catch it, but I do see it now, and I'm going to read it even though I can't put it on the screen. It says, given the British Boy Scout promise includes the phrase, to do my duty to God and to the King, how long till the USA Oath of Allegiance contains duty to President Trump?
You mean King Trump?
Yeah. Well, to God and to the King. Yeah, we'll just adopt the UK slogan. Sadly.
And sometimes, like, the religious beliefs are terrible. Like, you're a LGBTQ person at work, and they want to argue with you over whether you should be executed according to the Bible, because we've protested a church in Fort Worth where the pastor was actually telling people that that homosexuals should be shot. Like a call to violence. Why do we have to dignify that kind of argument where we work if you're an LGBTQ person about whether they have the right to live or not? Just because somebody doesn't believe they do.
Right. I mean, they wouldn't like it if some rabbi grabbed a pork sandwich out of their hand.
Do you have any other personal anecdotes to share in your situation? Because I gave a little bit of a rant, and my wife
That's
did
okay.
too. She had some good points in there. I want to make sure that you've covered everything that you wanted to say.
Okay, well, all right. I'll try not to take too long. But when I was still a believer, we had a union meeting at work, and then the union steward said, "Let's say a prayer before we leave." And I thought I was still a believer, so I went along with the prayer. It was a good prayer as prayers go, but I thought that was inappropriate, and it's like you trapped me, and I don't think that's right. They should have given a warning. You know, there's going to be a prayer. Don't come if you don't want the prayer, which I still think they should not have had the prayer. Right now, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Of
And
course,
God
as soon
doesn't
as I
need
get
a
off,
prayer anyway.
exactly, everything seems to need a prayer. Oh, and one of my coworkers says you're supposed to bless your food before you eat it. Well, what's the difference between blessed and unblessed prayer or food? As the thinking atheist Seth would say, I forget his last name.
Yeah. Well, I would bring up that a blessing is a positive magical enchantment, and a negative magical enchantment is called a curse. But they're both magical enchantments. So when they say "have a blessed day," they're literally telling you to have a magically enchanted day.
When I'm at the front desk waiting on customers, if they say "have a blessed day," I always say, I don't say, "No, you're stupid for believing in God." I can't discuss religion with the customer, so I'll just say, "You have a good day too."
Yeah, that's about the best we can do and still be professional.
Like,
Unfortunately,
in my opinion, religious beliefs, Christian religious beliefs, are inherently disrespectful to many groups of people. Not just if you're not Christian, like I was saying with LGBTQ. And yes, there are LGBTQ Christians who ignore those parts of the Bible. So, but we know Christians that say if they're not allowed to stop LGBTQ people from getting married, that their religious beliefs are being discriminated against. There's this entitlement that just because their book says it, that they get to be awful to other people. So that's another level beyond just debating whether God exists. That you're now debating whether you have the right to exist or love the person that you love or marry the person that you love.
Right. Well, they wouldn't like if a rabbi grabbed a ham sandwich out of their hand. Hey, you're not allowed to eat that because our covenant with God says, that's an unclean animal. So, same thing. But they can't understand it when it's, but they wouldn't like if it was, if the tables were turned on them. And I'm sure if Islam or Hinduism became the dominant religion in this country, they would then think, hey, this separation of church and state sounds like a good idea. They would want protection too. But when Christianity has the upper hand, then they want to plunge the knife in you. But then when it's the other way around, oh, please don't plunge that knife into me. So
I got another comment from Thurston Howell III, offers $5 and says there's a frightening and growing similarity between the concordat between Franco and the Catholic Church with Christian nationalists and Trump today. Yeah, it's pretty much everything that Trump did, or excuse me, everything Hitler did 90 years ago is what Trump is doing. Because Trump's ex-wife said that the only book he ever read was Mein Kampf, and she said that he kept it on his night table.
And like, there is a lot of ridiculousness that I think is ridiculous too in the Bible, of course, and you can have a discussion on that level. That how ridiculous is it to think that you should be executed for some of the ridiculous things like combining different fabrics, really silly, right? And I can make it light like that. but there's people who are affected by some of the things that are in the Bible where it's very deadly serious. Like there's still people being killed who are LGBTQ, beat to death, and the Bible makes these people who are religiously motivated to do this feel justified in violent behavior. And the Overton window also is moving. So we were having this discussion before Trump about how, well, my neighbor's a Nazi. He can talk about being a Nazi. It doesn't do anything to me. Well, but it doesn't stop there. When people start using their religious beliefs or violent ideologies to legislate and make laws that hurt other people, that's a horse of another color. And so that's why it's best to be fair to everyone. And religious people I've talked to, they say, well, do you want Muslims to take over? Because that's one of the big fears after 9/11, and that's what's driving a lot of this Project 2025 stuff since then. They have this fear of terrorism, I suppose. And they're like, if we're a Christian nation, we can stop Muslims from immigrating here, even though that's discrimination based on religious beliefs, deciding who can immigrate here and who can't based on their religious beliefs. And our answer to that is freedom of religion and having a pluralistic society and a secular government protects you as a Christian from if another sect, even of Christianity, we're talking about Catholics, comes into power. Not even if Catholics are going to kill Baptists or whatever. If most of the government is run by Catholics, if Catholics only hire other Catholics, that's discriminating against other sects.
Yeah,
This
because
is why a
I'm
secular
sorry.
government is necessary. It's not just trivial. It's people are able to express their bigoted views and probably in the workplace as well, because that's what it says in the Bible. And I'm sorry, you don't have a special right to be shitty to other people just because
Right.
what your Bible says.
Well, the thing too is people say, well, the Bible's against homosexuality. Well, it also says not to wear a poly blend or eat shrimp. So are you going to follow all the rules?
Yeah, the Bible also prohibits wearing tattoos.
That's right.
I know. It's like death penalties for some of these trivial things.
Yeah, like picking up sticks on the Sabbath. And they always say the Bible's against abortion, but it's not. And then you just pay a fine if you make a woman miscarry. You got in more trouble for picking up sticks on the Sabbath. But I told a woman that was leading a voluntary Bible study at work in the conference room. Notice that Jesus doesn't, he heals people by casting out demons instead of germs and viruses. So
there's a brilliant point. All right, so I got another comment from.
Take it out of religion. Let's say your neighbor's a Nazi. That's free speech, as long as he isn't advocating violence, harassing other people with it, or he's a government official who's enforcing a violent political ideology against other people. So like everybody's like live and let live. His beliefs, I don't agree with them. They're ridiculous, but fine, live and let live, unless people are legislating, unless people are harassing, unless people are hurting other people because of their beliefs.
I got another comment from Dead Skin Mask 541. That's an interesting name, for $10. Thank you. It says, I want to thank Aaron for what you do. I'm so glad I found your channel 7 years ago. You've eliminated most of my doubts. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. So I want to make sure, Paul, that when we close out of here, that you've said everything you came to say.
Well, as soon as I get off the air, I'm going to remember a bunch of more stuff, unfortunately. But I think I did cover a lot of ground. Hopefully, I didn't sound too uninformed.
No, I didn't think you sounded uninformed at all. So I
That's
very
high
much
praise coming
appreciate.
from you.
Thank you, and I very much appreciate Lalandra, you coming on. We have conversations, my wife and I, all the time, and I'm like, man, I wish I could just get this recorded. I wish she'd say this on air, because she says a lot of stuff that it's important. Anyway, I've got another comment. We got Jake C91 offers $19.99. Thank you. And says, I once listened to my supervisor rant about how the stars and planets don't exist. And the rockets we launch can't break the firmament. His latest rants are about how dinosaurs never existed because paleontology is a cash scam. Oh, take him on a day dig, because there's paleontological societies all over the country, and they'll go out. You can just go find your own fossils. They'll have professional paleontologists. They're there to help you. And a lot of fossils are hard to recognize, but there are some, like ammonite shells, easily discerned. So any novice can pick up some of these if you go to the right area where you know what kind of things are going to be found. I would love to have taken some of these creationists on any of the digs that I went on, because even if they don't find it themselves, the scientists around them will find stuff. And when you start dusting it off and pulling it out of the ground, you realize, yeah, that is what that is. Even if you didn't recognize it when you walked by it, and somebody with a trained eye did, once it comes out of the ground and they start taking the matrix off of it, you realize underneath, encased in all this rock, yeah, that's a Timnus spondyle, or what have you. There's no denying that this is there. It's not fake. The shit is real.
I'm sorry, I just thought of a couple more anecdotes. Of course, the late Farrell Till was a Bible critic, had the Skeptical Review. So I took one of his articles on the book of Daniel. I conveniently left it laying around for a Jehovah's Witness coworker of mine to look at. And I saw her finishing up the article, and she had a quizzical look on her face. So he must have been a good writer to get through to a Jehovah's Witness, because they're very indoctrinated.
He was a good writer. I quoted him a couple of times in my book, especially when he went into lambasting the Isaiah 7 prophecy.
Oh yeah,
how badly that failed.
Yes, it failed on both ends. Because the guy Ahaz, I think, still got his butt kicked anyway, didn't he? I have to look that up. But anyway,
he did. He definitely did still get that prophecy failed every way that it could fail, and it failed spectacularly.
Exactly.
I've got another comment I got to get to. So Ferthausen offers $10 and says, for many founders, religion was not a source of morality. They thought it was a substitute for morality, a substitute for those who didn't have time and education to discover moral truth on their own. I'll have to give that one some thought.
I had a coworker say to me, I don't understand this freedom of religion, separation of church and state. How can you have that when there's God on the money? I thought to myself, well, that's why we got to get it off the money.
Yeah, fair point, because it wasn't on there to begin with.
It wasn't on there.
It wasn't.
It was e pluribus unum.
Unum, yep. Exactly.
I'm going to have to bail. So, Paul, I would like to hear some closing comments before we end the show.
Well, I can't really add much to what I say off the top of my head. It's just that, do unto others. Hey, Christians, like your book says, do unto others. You wouldn't want someone shoving their stuff down your throat, no matter how much they might think it's true. And you can't even prove what you're saying anyway. So if you want to pray, do it quietly to yourself. And I had the district manager about the Cinco de Mayo I said, why don't the Christians, if they want to pray, they can pray privately, come in and join the rest of the people for the luncheon. And she says, it doesn't work that way. Too bad.
It does work that way. Well, actually, it doesn't work any way, but the best way to do it is that way.
Yes. And she said, well, people, they go to church and they take it home with them. This ain't their church or home. This is a place of business.
Yeah. All right, Paul, thank you very much for being on. Lalandra, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate your assistance. One more comment. Jake C91 offers $9.99. Thank you. Says his claim that we have never found a complete fossil. However, he does say that the pyramids were built by giants.
You know what? I heard that story in the Bible in Genesis about giants, and I am in Sunday school, and I almost became an atheist right there. I said, "Oh, come on." Even that was too silly even for me, and I believed everything else the Bible said. Oh my gosh.
I get you. All right, Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for everyone watching, good night.
Good night or good afternoon.